Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harold Shorter, and today we'll be going over workforce development in Blakely, Georgia. This is presented for LHRD 7001 in the 2023 First Fall module for Dr. Oliver Crocco. For the agenda, we will go over the city workforce overview, the state workforce development overview, some strengths and weaknesses of the programs, a recommended way forward, and then we will conclude. Just go over some of the wave tops for the city. Um, Blakely was Blakely and Early County were originally settled in 1818, but did not become part of the state of Georgia until 1825. So there is some discrepancy with the city dates itself back to 1818, the county not till 1825, which is just a small thing there. For the population, Blakely is an extremely rural area. The population is only about 10,500 people, over 50% African American, a little bit less than 50% white, and then we have the breakdown here of the rest of the race that live inside the county limits. The most interesting part for our purposes here today are the huge discrepancy between high school graduates at over 80%, and only 14% of the residents living there having a bachelor's or higher degree. So that is something that really matters for what we're looking at for the workforce development. The workforce inside Blakely, Georgia is very small and also not very diverse, at least to an outsider's perspective. So as of 2020, there were 3,690 workers within the city and the county at large. That was generally within education, health, and the trades. I remember when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time in the city, and everyone either seemed to be a teacher, a nurse, or a farmer, or they worked in like the grocery store or something like that. And that has held true ever since I stopped, spending a lot of time down there. So between this slide and the next couple of slides, it'll break down into more detail of what occupations are generally held by people within the city. Okay, so on the previous slide, it was broken down into a little bit of detail. On this slide, we see where they're more lumped together. So as I said before, 14.6% work in healthcare and social assistance. That makes sense. The healthcare industry down there is huge. There are several homes for elderly people, several assisted care living facilities, a hospital that's about 40 minutes away outside the city. So a lot of people did go into those fields. Education services, as I said before, there's a high school in the city, a kindergarten, and a middle school. And there is also an annex for the University of Georgia, kind of on the outskirts of the city. As I said before, then you get into the trades: manufacturing, construction, agricultural, forestry, fishing, and hunting, transportation, warehousing. Those are huge fields for people to go into down in that city. Okay, and lastly, this just shows, as of 2016, the size of companies that are down in the city, and just kind of the idea of how large the companies are. One thing that's really interesting at the very top, agriculture and mining. When I was in high school, they opened up a very large mine just on the outskirts of the city, and a good amount of people who had worked on the farms actually picked up and they moved into working for the mine. This was probably 2006, between 2006 and 2008. I haven't been back and asked about the mine ever since, but the large shift from farming into mining was extremely interesting a few years ago, and it's something to consider today when we talk about upskilling and reskilling people moving from field to field. So now that we've seen kind of what the workforce looks like, the research question is, what solutions exist to improve the access to higher levels of employment in Blakely, Georgia? So when I was building the slide deck, I actually found more programs than I could include with the time limit that we have. So I'm only going to talk about two right now. The first one is from the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. This was created in 2018. This was built in response to the effects of Hurricane Michael in 2018, how it affected some of the rural communities in Georgia. There are 20 counties that are designated specifically for assistance from this program. The idea of this program is to target technical colleges. So I'm not sure how it is in your states, but in Georgia, the technical college or a community college somewhere else is a very, very robust system. So the state of Georgia has the state of Georgia university system, and also state of Georgia technical college system. And those systems are designed to work together in such a way that you have your 4-year degree people also who are supported by your 2-year associate's degree people. But in areas like Blakely and Early County and kind of the more rural areas, the technical colleges have not historically been supported as much as they were like where I was born in Augusta, where it's very, very supported. So the idea with this grant was to funnel a lot of money into those technical colleges to increase what they can provide for the workforce. So this grant, one of the kinds specifically is Early County to bring up that workforce. So this is one program that they can access. The second program that I just want to briefly touch on is Georgia Quick Start. So this was founded in 1967. It was the first of its kind program in the United States. And I remember seeing this even in the town where I was born in. So the idea with this program is an external training force that can come in and train a workforce within an area that's needed for rapid expansion. So, for example, on the actual website, companies like Starbucks have said, we want to expand into parts of Georgia where there wasn't a workforce. We got in touch with Georgia Quick Start. Georgia Quick Start came in, provided training to people who want to work for our company, and allowed us to open up a location in the state of Georgia with the trained workforce, and we didn't have to provide that training. So this is something that is also available for people to access in order to enter the workforce, as long as the program is actually happening in their area. So the strengths and weaknesses of the programs that we talked about for the state of Georgia. The strengths, obviously, they're very robust. Georgia's been investing in its workforce for a very long time. Funds are specifically allocated for this specific area, as touched on before with the community development program. Early County has kind of been left behind in a lot of the workforce development, so they're starting to put money into the area. And as we saw with the Quick Start, the programs are diverse and flexible in delivering location. So some of the programs will actually come to you in order to train the workforce that's in your area. Some of the weaknesses, unfortunately, the programs can be difficult to access for lower socioeconomic areas. So Early County, as I said, is very rural, has been kind of left outside the economic development of the state of Georgia, almost shamefully so. So the people who live there may not even be aware of these programs. The offer skills are not always stereotyped in difficulty. I found 6 different organizations funded by the state of Georgia for workforce development. And some of the programs were basically like, hey, here's how you can become a coder. And that's not necessarily what you need, right? Like in the area of if 80% have high school diplomas and only 14% have bachelor's degrees, they may not be ready for that higher level of employment access. So I am a little bit concerned about that for the programs. And lastly, while programs are diverse and flexible, navigation appears more complicated than necessary. I have a 4-year degree and several advanced degrees, and some of the programs were hard for me to figure out. The websites are kind of clunky, outdated. The wording isn't very clear, so they can be very hard to get into for me, and I know what I'm looking for. So for someone who doesn't know what they're looking for, these programs can be a little bit hard to get into. So the recommendations I'd make for Early County, one, leverage the state programs more than they're currently doing. On the actual city website, I couldn't find anything for workforce development. They had a tab for it, but no links or anything went anywhere. So I would recommend they actually leverage the state programs and link to them on their websites. Number 2, diversify workforce professions. While the professions they've had have done okay so far, I think that there's a lot of things they can capitalize on to expand what happens down there in Early County. That rolls right into the third one. Amplify what they already have and expand where applicable. Just again to diversify what they have in the area. Lastly is to recruit early and visibly where possible. In all my time going down there, they don't really have work fairs or anything like that, job fairs. I think that that's something they should be doing to point people into the right direction to upskill and reskill their workforce. And the last thing is just potential is nothing without action. Early County is an old county, one of the oldest ones in the state of Georgia. And there's a lot of people down there that I think want to do want to work hard and want to do good things and want to get better and make more money and do all those great things. However, the city and the county have not come forward and brought the workforce into the future. So while they do have all that potential, I think that there's a lot that the city and the county can do to capitalize on that potential and bring their workforce forward. Okay, and just my last slide, these are my references. Thank you very much for listening to me talk about the workforce development in the city of Blakely, Georgia, and have a good day.